Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. This is a very special episode. We have Thomas Stallworth II coming on. He's an assistant strength coach for the New York Giants. Now, when Thomas comes on, he's going to be explaining to the young athlete who has NFL aspirations how to approach the strength and conditioning process. He'll later discuss the aspects outside of football that he thinks a young athlete should try and master as they work toward an NFL career. When we get to the third quarter, we're going to be discussing his top 3 pieces of advice for the strength and conditioning coach that wants to work at the NFL level. Thomas is also going to explain the difference between working at the collegiate level as a strength and conditioning coach and the NFL level. When we get into the fourth quarter, we're going to discuss how he approaches leadership as a strength and conditioning coach at the NFL level. I'm telling y'all, this is a tremendous episode. Please feel free to share, download, subscribe to the Sports Mastery Podcast on iTunes. I'm looking forward to your ratings and review. Welcome to the show.
Thomas said we're trying to do too much, but he's just new to this, so he'll catch on.
Yeah, man, we're making it happen.
Oh no, this is big time now. I mean, this is bigger than Skype right here.
Yeah, I like Zoom. It's been a little easier for me. You know what I mean? I was using another platform and we were on, it was all audio, but now we can actually see each other and it records a video and the audio file.
Good deal.
You know, so Sean, he was telling me that are you the head strength coach or are you the assistant strength coach with the New York Giants?
I'm an assistant with the Giants.
Yeah. Tell us about, your path to getting to the Giants. How did that start?
Well, I think I've got to start back when I first went to college. So I played football at the University of Tennessee from 1997 to 2001. And while there, I actually went to college as an engineering major. I had an uncle who was a civil engineer that went to Vanderbilt, another uncle that was an architectural engineer that went to Hampton. And, seeing what they did and enjoying designing things, it sparked my interest. But what you learn real quick is that being engineering majors, architecture majors, and trying to play Division I football is extremely tough. Like there's a fine line to balance the academic and athletic demands at a Division I school. And so when I switched my major, I went into sports management, and actually my next goal was to try to be a sports agent. So as I'm going through finishing undergrad and getting ready for, I say law school because I wanted to go to law school. I've got a sister that's a judge now, but she was a lawyer. I applied to UT Law School, and, at that time they were like, well, your grades aren't good, but if you work to get your master's, then, that'll help your chances trying to get into law school. So I was like, okay, I can do that. So then I went to grad school at State of UT to get in grad school. And while I was there, you just kind of, just played around with strength conditioning because at the end of the day, you're still, I was still an athlete. I still loved the game, wanted to be around the game one way or another. And also just the love of being able to work out. So, that it worked out there. I finished my master's. I obviously did not pursue my law degree, but from there, my first job was at South Carolina State and HBCU in Orangeburg, South Carolina. They were looking to try and really grow their strength conditioning program because the head coach there at the time, Buddy Pugh, had just come from South Carolina with Lou Holtz. And so he had seen what it was like to be at a big-time university, what it meant to really have a organized strength conditioning program and how important it was for the culture of a team. So while I was, I was there, and originally I interviewed, I was supposed to be hired for football, but before you know it, the word gets around through the athletic department. Now you've got volleyball and men's and women's tennis and men's and women's got other sports they want to, they want you to take care of the athletes as well. And, at that time I was 24 years old, like, no problem. I'll take it on. Let's, it'll be a good challenge, but it'll be a great experience. I want these athletes to be able to enjoy their college careers the same way I did. So, from South Carolina State, went to Grambling State to Mississippi State to North Carolina State to Texas Tech to Fresno State. That's where I got my first opportunity to be a Division I or FBS head strength coach. From there, went to Western Kentucky as a head guy, and then from there to here as an assistant.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Do you still have people at Fresno State?
I know some of the players, they're still there, but, no coaches. When Jeff Tedford got there, he cleaned house. You know the nature of the business. People want their own people, and I can respect that.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking, I had a gentleman here. His name is Alex Jones, and he graduated from Western Oregon University and found me online and did an internship with me here for a whole year. And then he was able to go down to Stanford and do an official collegiate internship. And from there, he went to Fresno State, and he's almost done with his master's. So I'm looking forward to once he gets his CSCS, real good brother from North Portland, to introduce him to both of y'all. So he's in the trenches at Fresno State.
Oh, well, yeah. And so I do know the guy who replaced me. He's a real good guy. He actually came from Stanford, so that was their connection. But yeah, I'm at the point now, just turned 40, that it's time to start pouring and helping younger brothers, because the profession is dying for us. It's unfortunate that we're typically looked at for the diversity hire or the minority hire, but there are good young strength coaches that are capable of being head guys and being leaders of programs.
It's interesting that you say that, because my path was different, where I majored in speech communications, and I didn't have a guide that say, hey, you need to go get a master's in exercise science. I think you would be good at this. But when I get interns, I'm like, for y'all to play at the highest level, I need y'all to get a master's. And then it's going to open up a bunch of doors. So anytime I get an internship, and I was just speaking to the young exercise science students at Portland Community College earlier this week, I'm like, you guys have to get a master's. It's imperative. Anything you want to do, it's going to open a ton of doors. So I appreciate you saying that. You said something key earlier when you were at the HBCUs and the work that you were doing on the importance of having a strength and conditioning program for the culture of a particular sport. And we could just say this for football. What would you say to the high school coaches who probably don't take their strength and conditioning serious? How could you enlighten them on this subject matter?
That's a very good question. The first thing I would say is that by not stressing or supporting your strength conditioning program, you're doing your athletes a disservice. Because so much of what strength conditioning is more mental than physical. As strength coaches, you're not only just teaching guys how to lift weights and move weight and do stuff like that, but you're taking them to a different place mentally and pushing themselves and exposing themselves to a stress that they've never experienced. And so it's the first time that they do something they've never done. It's like that first time you succeed. Okay, now you want a little bit more. Well, now I want to see what else I can do. Now I want to see what else I can do. And now when you get that level of confidence, you play with that. You carry yourself with that. You just act a lot differently instead of being the questionable or I don't know or, just lacking confidence.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember listening to some of the NSCA symposiums back in 2012. And there was somebody in one of the audiences. And the gentleman asked, well, where does mental preparation fit in? And I forget who was speaking at the time. And the guy he just said physical preparation, physical preparation, physical preparation. And you can see it at a young level like high school when they've been working out for a year, 2, 3 versus their competitors, how much more confidence that they might have on the field, diamond, quarter, track.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in a game like football, because one of the learning experiences for me was from my transition from being in the SEC to now being in the MEAC, you're dealing with some athletes who, truthfully, their high schools don't have it. But you hear the stories of, the athletes that they have on the field, but then when they run into bigger and better programs, that physically they just can't stand up to them. And so while athletically they could match up with them, it's the point in time that your body's just going to start to break down. And that's when those better teams, those, more physically astute teams will really want to that's when they show their killer instinct. Like, we know we've got these guys, let's put them to bed. And so, they play and they carry themselves with a different edge because of that.
That's right. Sean, what do you think about what Coach Stallworth is expressing right now?
Oh, he's absolutely right. I mean, obviously he has a lot of experience, but not only is it physical, it is mental. I mean, when you get a kid who has like no experience in a weight room, and you're putting these stresses on their body, how do they respond? You're looking at how they respond to it. Some guys, they don't like to feel uncomfortable, and it's okay in the weight room if you're starting to feel that way, because that's going to transfer onto the field. And because once if you're uncomfortable in the weight room, and then you adjust to it, and you get on the field, you can you'll be uncomfortable in some certain circumstances, and you'll adjust to it. So it's all there, and like you said, a lot of programs don't have it. I've run into coaches here, and they talk about their program, or our kids are fine, we have this, but then when you go on the field and you look and see how they move, and it's like, man, you're doing these kids a disservice. You want them to be more powerful or quicker, but you don't have a program that fosters that encourages that, and that gives them that leg up.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's interesting being a strength coach or a sports performance coach, and especially, all of us, we played the game. I played at Portland State, Western Oregon, later some semi-pro football and a few indoor football teams, Arena 2. So we know what it looks like. We understand the skullduggery of having to go to the gym and work out even on those days that you don't even want to be there. So there's like a psychology that we've been through from a subjective experience that we can relay. Could you touch on that, Thomas, as far as understanding like the psychology of like, I got to go to the weight room 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 days a week. And even when you don't want to be there, but you still got to go to get the hip mobility. You still got to go to get your core work in.
It's funny you say that, because one of the things that, you talk about the importance of training. I was at the Combine in Indy last week, and I was talking to my mentor, Harold Nash, who is a head strength coach with the Detroit Lions. And, when you ask players what's your level of importance, what's their level of, of training, how important is it, the answers you can get, but then it's like, okay, well, when you hear the answer, okay, now walk me through it. So walk me through your day. So it's like, okay, they love it, but then it's at the end of their day. But if it's really something that you love, it's usually a priority. So for me, and this, of course, it's not about me, but I'm looking for the guy who it's first thing in the morning, because now you got it taken care of. But as we know, if you procrastinate and put stuff off throughout the day, it's easy to, now at the end of the day, you just don't have it in you. Or something comes up and now you've lost the day. And so now it becomes, I got to get it in tomorrow. Whereas if you just go ahead and get it in at the beginning of the day, it's taken care of. And it's a different feeling about your day after you get that first lift in to get your body up and going.
You know what? I agree with you 100% on that, because I feel a lot better when I get my personal workouts in the morning. You know what I mean? But late in the day, it's kind of hard, and I have procrastinated. When I'm feeling right and when I just muscle through it, I still will go. So I think what you're saying, from getting it in early, first thing in the morning, there's some truth to that. Now, what I wanted to ask you, man, was what aspects outside of football do you think a young athlete should try and master as they work toward an NFL career, if that's their goal and they're already at a Division I level, or they're looking at getting scholarships or offers already at the D1 level?
It's funny when you talk about mastering something, it's the relationship part. And what I mean by that is surrounding yourself with the right people. Because one of the things that, we heard when I was in college and now going through, as a player and even as a coach, there are plenty of talented people in the world. There are more athletic and more talented people in the world, but they weren't surrounded by the right people to keep them in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Whereas now in high school, if you are really serious about it, you need to find that other person that's serious about it, because now that person is going, the old Bible verse, iron sharpens iron, that person is going to hold you accountable. You can hold them accountable. And now you all can reap the benefits together. But if you're trying to do it, if you're just trying to master this thing, thinking that, okay, you got it on your own, or, you've seen somebody else do it. It's one thing when you see somebody else do it, but it's a different thing when you have to go through it with somebody.
That's right. Sean, can you add on to this?
Well, nobody gets there by themselves, and Stahl was right. You definitely have to surround yourself with people who are going in that same direction. I mean, we all know stories of guys who were superior athletes, but they surround themselves with the wrong people, and they fell by the wayside. And some guys who were not that guy, but they got a break here and there. They surround themselves with good people, and they got the break. So, and especially in this day and age, with some of these youngsters now, and with the social media and everything, you really have to be aware of who you surround yourself with. That direction you want to go in, that's who you get. Some people that's going to help you get there. And not only them help you, you help them, and you guys go together. Like Thomas said, that iron sharpening iron is real. And, by surrounding yourself with people who are not going to help you become better, they're just shortchanging themselves, and you're not challenging yourselves. And at the same time, you don't want to surround yourself with yes men. You want people that's going to be real with you, that's going to give you the honest truth, that's going to challenge you, that's going to let you know when you're coming up short and that you can do better. Don't look at it as them hating on you or criticizing. Look at them that they want to get you better. So, some of the kids, you just gotta, not be soft. Just handle your business, but definitely surrounding yourself, with the right peers, and also with the right mentors. And that's very important, because some of them been to where you're trying to go. So, and by their input, that can help you miss a few potholes.
Yeah, I think what you said is key, is the social side. And we've talked about this at length before, as far as having emotional intelligence and having social intelligence in order to make the right moves, because what you can do socially can affect, what you do psychologically, in terms of you have some type of antic outside of sport, outside of school, you get in trouble. Now you done missed a game or two. You got to come back. Now you're working on the physical side because you haven't been able to practice. And now there's a psychological side because you're not confident, or 100% certain, as had you not had the mishap or whatever it is you did socially, whether you were suspended, had detention, couldn't make practice, or whatever punishment that came of that. We've seen it happen with kids over and over again, that had they just hung with the right crowd, they would have put themselves in a key position or stayed where they were. So I agree with you 100%. As we get into the fourth quarter, Thomas, I wanted to ask you, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for the strength coach wanting to work at the NFL level?
Top 3 pieces of advice. The first piece, it's goes to the relationship. It's building a network. Because the NFL is a different monster in itself, because it's a close-knit fraternity. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but there are things that happen on this level that happen so fast that it's easy for the outsider to never know what is going on. Things happen that quick, and in the process of it happening, if you're not in the right person's circle, if the right person doesn't know about you, then you just miss opportunities. These jobs come and go, really. I mean, you think there were 7, 8 head coaches that were turned over this season. That's, 20 other coaches, whatever number of people that were on those staffs. But as these head coaches are interviewing for these positions, they're looking for people in the right circles or in their circle that can connect them. So that would be the first thing, networking. The second thing is just being patient. I was at Western Kentucky, and funny thing is the guy who recommended me for the job at Western Kentucky is the person I'm working for now. He had recommended me. I interviewed, I got the job, and I was in a great situation. Loved the head coach I was working for. My family was happy there. And he gives me a call out of the blue. And, it's like I wasn't looking. The NFL was never on my radar. I tell people that all the time. I was never chasing the NFL. I literally love being in college, but it is still the NFL. And as a true football fan, you just want that opportunity to say that you've done it. And so, you have to be patient with those opportunities because it's not that you can go chase these jobs. NFL jobs, especially as strength coaches and head strength coaches, are harder to come by than people realize because there are so many different dynamics to the head position. It's not like a true college program where the head coach, where the strength coach is tied to the head coach. There can be organizational hires. There can be athletic trainer hires. There's different dynamics to navigate. So, it's hard to figure out how or when you'll get that opportunity. So, that's patience. But then lastly is just, and I want to make sure I say it the right way, but a genuineness to work with athletes because it's easy to now get on this level. And, we've got a great team here. I can walk into work seeing Eli Manning. I get to work with Odell Beckham, a Saquon Barkley, like the people that you work with, but you can't be starstruck. You have to understand this is their livelihood. So they are there to get their bodies taken care of. They still want to be coached. Eli is 37 years old and still comes to the gym looking to get better. If you can coach him on how to set his scap, how to set his core, how to transfer a weight, he wants to listen to all of that because these guys want to be the best at what they can do for as long as they can do it. So, you have to be genuine with these guys and not be fans, but still be a coach to them.
I understand. What would you say from your experience is the major difference between collegiate strength and conditioning and the NFL?
Going back to that genuine part, like if you lack any, and I say any confidence or any bit of knowledge, these guys see through it. And once they see through it, you're done. Because, these guys have their own circles of, and I say circles, but, they might train here one day, train here another week, because the NFL offseason is so long, like we didn't make the playoffs. So our guys have been off from basically January 1 until we see them again April 15th. These guys are traveling. They're all over the place. They don't just sit still in the offseason. And so if you're saying something different from what one of the other trainers said, that's fine. But you better be able to explain it and articulate it so that they understand exactly why you're doing it and what you mean by it. Because if you stuttering or hemming and hawing, he don't know what he's talking about. And you'll lose them that quick.
How do you approach leadership as a strength and conditioning coach at the NFL level? And this is something Sean and I talked about, and we spoke about it at length. So we was looking forward to hearing you talk about this. This is funny because I'm honored to be a part of this, but it's like stuff you just don't really think of when you're in a position. But for me, I'm a big relationship person. I'm working on my doctorate, and Sean knows, but I'm working on my doctorate in sports psychology because I think at the root of everything is the connection. And so when you talk about leadership on this level, you're dealing with grown men that are making light years more money than you are. So you can't try to just hold the title over their head. Like, they don't have to call you coach. They can call you Stallworth, Thomas. It's whatever. It's not about a title with them. But they have to genuinely know that you are a man of your word and that you have their best interest in mind. And so as you have respect and humility for them and towards them, they return that to you. But if you think this ain't college where it's a dictator, I'm going to just talk to you any kind of way, I'm going to raise my – no, these are grown men that you're dealing with. And so just like you interact with any other grown man, regardless of it being football and it being this,
high testosterone, high aggressive, sport, you still have to have some humility amongst, with yourself as you're dealing with these guys.
Without naming any names, do you have any particular stories where, things might have went awry with a particular strength coach and a team based on what you're talking about as far as leadership?
Like you said, can't say any names, but there was this is the other funny thing about the NFL, because of free agency and player moves, you can talk to these players that come from different places, and they can tell you about good strength coaches and bad strength coaches. And so it's still a learning process for us, because if you want to stick around this league, this is a players' league. If you are a joke or you're a shuck and they don't believe in you, please believe they're going to talk about it to some other teammates or other friends on other teams, and it don't take long for word to travel. But to that point, there was a situation where, a young strength coach, he tries to come into a team, and it's the offseason, and he's trying to raise his voice at a guy, and the guy went at him, and it got physical. And that's why I say you have to realize that you're dealing with grown men. And so, like I used to tell my college athletes, don't think that because we're in this setting, a controlled setting with rules and regulations, that one, I'm just going to talk to you anyway, but two, that you're going to be protected and think that you're going to talk to me anyway. Because there are things that you might try and hear that good and well, if you walk across that street or walk across that campus and try it, you might get lumped up, you might get locked up, but there are going to be consequences. And I'm the same way. And so I believe that it goes both ways. I'm not going to try to disrespect you, because I know I wouldn't do that on the street. And so because we're at work, I still want to be a professional with you.
That's right. So the key to all this is being a professional. Sean, what else would you like to add in terms of leadership? I know you've had extensive conversations with Coach Stallworth.
Well, leadership, he pretty much said it. It's all relationship. And I think with that relationship, when you develop that and it's genuine, and the guy knows that you have a guy or girl know you have their best interests at heart, the respect goes there, and then they're more apt to follow you. They're not going to follow you because they have to. They're going to do it because they respect you. They're going to know that, you're a person of your word, that you're going to give it to them straight. And then that goes a long ways. It really does. So it is our relationship. Any relationships, obviously are relational, but leadership is relationship. Is saying hi to the person that makes the least money to the person that makes the highest money, and it's just simple as that. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get it. But I do want to tell this story, and Stallworth, I don't even think he knows about it. But when he was at and I think I hadn't met Thomas, but I did want to say, when he was talking about the college fraternity, but we do have another connection. We are fraternity brothers of the greatest fraternity in the world, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So we are fraternity brothers. But he was at Fresno, and I knew a young man there. And this young man was telling me a story about the strength coach that was tripping. Now he's tripping, man. He made me do this and came at me like this. He was just on one, right? So I'm sitting there listening to him. I'm like, okay, all right. And in my head, I know there's always two sides of the story. But make a long story short, then I run into Thomas. I get to know this brother. And then we hanging out, and over the years I see more and more, of how he is. And then I'm reflecting back on this young man. And so when the new coach came in, the young man kind of like fell off, and it got worse and worse and worse. But then I'm watching Thomas's career, and it's soaring and soaring and soaring. And now you look at, honestly, if you look at the directions of both of them, they went opposite directions. And all I'm saying is to go back on what we talked about, surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, I'll say if maybe this young man got got out of his feelings and really understood what was going on, who's to say he might have benefited from that, even though, Stallworth moved on. Maybe there was something that he could have spoken to his life that might have helped this young man. But it was interesting that he was saying all this stuff, and it just didn't make sense. And really, to this day, it doesn't make sense. Now, when I see him, I'm like, I know you were tripping. I definitely know you were tripping. And it's unfortunate. And it really is unfortunate that he could not tap into what Coach Stallworth had to offer. So that's my story there.
Wow. Coach Stallworth, I wanted to ask you, what position did you play?
Played linebacker.
Linebacker.
Let me say linebacker, and then for one spring, numbers were down, so I had to play fullback. But yeah, I was a linebacker throughout my entire career. Okay.
What's your personal thoughts on 7-on-7 football in high school?
It's the same thing of AAU basketball. Yep. It's a lot of bad habits to make people feel good and to make some adults a lot of money.
Okay.
Truthfully, there's nothing good that comes out of the 7-on-7 scene because, one, you're putting players in unrealistic expectations. Well, yeah, they're outside, they're playing a game, but there's zero pressure to have of linemen coming after you, or the thrill. And I say the thrill because as a defensive player, I'm thinking about chasing quarterbacks and blitzing and stuff like that. But there's not that level of threat or that pressure that you have to perform under. You can sit back there, pat the ball, you can look good as you want to back there, and hadn't taken a hit a whole game. When you hit somebody, life changes. You get to rattle somebody, life changes. As ball players, both of you all know that. You can, even on my side, as a defensive guy, when you get run over, you're like, oh, he got something to him. Let me tighten this chin strap up, give me a new mouthpiece. It's going to be a different game. And so, you realize that the physicality of the game that's missing makes that, the 7-on-7 element, a lot more fluffy and less fundamentally sound than it needs to be.
One thing I always wondered, though, and this is another aspect that I think I've tapped in. They kind of leave the linemen out. There's nobody. Well, I'm looking specifically at the Pop Warner level. So they're talking about 7-on-7s and all this stuff, but nobody's really doing anything with the linemen. There's no 7-on-7 for linemen, right?
You see a few like what they call trench camps, and I coach a 7-on-7 team, and what I tell my kids, this isn't serious. All you guys are out here to do is really work on your craft as a defensive back and as a receiver. You're not going to get a scholarship out of this. If you look bad out here, you're definitely going to look bad in pads. But I'm trying to help kids tighten up their routes, read defenses, and then, work on their footwork. But I think that you're 100% right when you look at certain organizations, man, speak on it some more. What else would you say and feel free to speak freely about how you feel about it, because this is all good information.
Oh, you saying name names?
No, just like how you feel about 7-on-7 culture. Sean, we've talked about AAU basketball. Yes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, because what you're doing is it's basketball on grass, and so you're getting guys to, and I hear what you're saying as a coach. You want them to work on their routes, but we know that they can get out there, and as a wide receiver, you might not, because 7-on-7, they try to eliminate the contact. Now you don't have to worry about trying to beat a press. You don't have to work on that release. You can just take off. And now this DB that normally might try to grab you by the hip or tug on your jersey, you don't have to deal with that. So you're not able to develop an essential part of the game, which is to learn how to battle and work on your releases and stem routes and do all those. Wide receivers know how to use a chicken wing to create separation. Mm-hmm. You can't do that because what you don't want to have happen at 7-on-7 is, you don't want contact. You don't want guys to get hurt. But, there's the level of competition that it happens, and before you know it, it just goes awry. But, yeah, I'm not really a fan of it because The other thing is, like you said, you try to tell, and I know that you have your head on straight. You're going to tell your players the right thing. You'll have some coaches that come out here and they're coaching like it's Super Bowl 52, baby. I mean, I've worked at colleges. No, seriously, like I've worked at colleges, and during the summer as strength coach, you have to help officiate or whatever. There have been coaches that have literally taken their teams and left because they did not like a call, they didn't like something. And I'm like, okay, you're an adult.
That's
and
right.
You're showing your kids, you're showing this team that it's okay to just leave because you don't like something. Really? And then we wonder why our society is the way it is. And so now, of course, we know these coaches that are coaching these teams are dealing with a different demographic of kids. So this is the one male that they get a chance to see, and they think this is the right way. No, baby, that ain't it. And we wonder why society is the way it is. Because if we don't like something, we can just quit, or we can just leave, or we can just go somewhere else. Instead of, guess what? That's life. You suck it up, you deal with it, we play again. There's no such thing as an undefeated college football team, no such thing as undefeated NFL team. In most states, high school teams don't even go undefeated. So yes, you might lose a game in a 7-0, heaven forbid it's a 7-on-7 tournament. You lost that. You ain't put a pad on, you ain't put a helmet on. Your record is still 0-0. But you had a chance for a great opportunity to compete against some other people that are probably just as good as you are, but because you're in your feelings, you didn't like X, Y, and Z, you just ready to quit and leave. No, it's comical to me. It really is.
It all goes back to leadership.
Yeah, some of the antics that we see out here, as far as like people, they might have a family member that coaches in the NFL, or they might have connections to a few college coaches, so they'll be coaching 7-on-7 teams and basically selling kids to play for them on the chance that they'll get a scholarship or increase their ranking with 247 Sports and some of these other entities, which some of us find it really laughable.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and again, that's why I call it the AAU version, the football version of AAU, because, everybody knows the corrupt nature of AAU basketball. You're talking about, and not to jump subjects, but just to illustrate how corrupt basketball is, you got a coach at LSU now that just got in trouble. Well,
hey.
I know that. I'm not. That's not what they are.
Hey, you left Arizona out. You left Kansas out.
That just happened today. I'm just saying about today. Friday, March 8th. I'm just going about today.
Yeah.
But everybody knows the same thing is happening 7-on-7. And you get some of these people that stack these teams, and like, you're trying to stack a 7-on-7 team, really?
Yeah.
I mean, these kids are not going to be playing together. If anything, they're going to be playing against each other once the high school season starts. But yet you got the best player from this area, the best to make yourself as a coach look good and to get your team recognition. But then when they go back to their team and they're the best player and they don't have just as good talent on the team, now when they're struggling and they're looking just normal, looking average, oh, well, what happened?
Where's the leadership? How do you take over a game? And then how do you help your teammates rise to the occasion? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, so I got a question. We were talking about the professional level, and and we're talking about AAU, 7-on-7 AAU. So now at the professional level, and we were talking about specialization. And I don't know if you've heard him talking. How many of those guys, specialized in football, or do you hear stories of a guy he may have been all-state in basketball, baseball, other sports, or they didn't start playing football till later? Have you heard any of those stories? Because everybody now, if I start my kid at 8 years old, he's going to be a professional this or that. And we've had those conversations here about specialization in sports at length too.
Sean, it's again, I'm loving this conversation because you all are bringing back so many memories and just bringing just stories out. that generation of multi-sport athletes is gone because
that's right.
Sport specialization is starting so much younger now. So, and it's not just sport specialization, but it's the fear of injury. And so when I was at Tennessee, one of my, like our class of 97, I would probably go on record as saying it was one of the best college football recruiting class of all time, because you're talking about a Jamal Lewis who rushed for 2,000 yards, a Travis Henry who rushes for 2,000 yards, a Travis Stevens who in the swamp against Steve Spurrier goes for 250, a David Martin, Cozy Coleman, Fred Weir, just a bunch of great, Dominique Stevenson. I can name all 25 of us, but that are still good friends. But all that being said, a David Martin, a Deion Grant, guys that were also McDonald's high school All-Americans in basketball, were five-star athletes, five-star football players. There was no fear of them getting hurt. They just wanted to play ball. It didn't matter what kind of ball. They wanted to play ball, and they were going to play ball all the time. Whereas now, either you're a basketball player, you're a baseball player, you're a football player. I mean, you look at the situation with Kyler Murray. They weren't going to let him do both. When I was at NC State, that was the big thing about Russell Wilson. The stories about him and Tom O'Brien going back and forth because Russell wanted to play baseball, but O'Brien wanted him at football. It's just not there anymore. And it's because, one, coaches demand so much out of them, but two, the fear of injury.
It's ironic too, because now the fear of injury is worse when you specialize.
Oh, it is. I mean, as strength coaches, we understand that overuse injuries are on the rise because people are getting exposed to something at such a young age. Their body is doing the same thing for so long and never learning any other athletic movement patterns or any other spatial awareness skills or anything. So now it's, okay, well, all I'm doing is throwing my right arm. I'm always rotating this way. Well, you're going to have a right arm injury. You're going to have a left oblique strain. You're going to have that right oblique strain because you're doing the same thing. Yeah. And so, it is comical, but again, you can't tell coaches anything. Coaches have the answer, and so, you just have to defer to them.
Yeah, and that's coupled with not getting any rest and the fact that they are quick to pay money to AAUs, but nobody wants to pay to have a strength coach work with your child, which is very comical.
The other side that I've seen of it is like, especially with AAU athletes, the select soccer kids, and I'm sure it's going to come down the line with 7-on-7 is the pressure to play on the select team, the pressure to play on the all-star team, to go travel. So it doesn't allow time for training. And then they're getting talked out of training where it's almost not important. I mean, speaking of the subject, I just had a lady contact me yesterday, and she's been seeing, what I've been doing online as far as the promotion and the marketing. She's like, I like what you're doing. I want to get my son over to you. He's just finishing up basketball. He played football. He's going to run track. And then in the middle of track season, he's going to start AAU basketball. So I'm like, listen, Miss Jones, when he has time for you to get him in here at a minimum of twice a week for about 6 to 8 weeks so we can see some gains, I would say contact me then. I was just really upfront with her. But you could see how, you almost get swindled as the string part is the last part.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so much of the focus on skill development, they completely forget and neglect the importance of physical development. You're talking about situations where now in high school, some of the strength coaches are just football or sport coaches that are taking X program, Y program from their college or from somewhere else and not knowing the rationale behind why, the program is laid out the way it is, or learning how to teach the exercise the correct way. They just expect the time that they're in school, that their training is enough. But as we know, training has to be intentional and it has to be supervised to really maximize whatever that exercise is.
Exactly.
That's high powered, man. I think we're going to close out right there. Sean, did you have any more questions to ask Thomas?
No, I just want to say appreciate you for
Yes,
taking
sir.
the time out and speaking to the subject and adding some things that we hadn't thought about. As you mentioned, NFL was not your goal, but for some people it is a lot. It's their goal, and listening to you and what you had to offer today was very valuable. So I just want to take the time to say thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, I remember them backs from Tennessee because I played running back. I remember them dudes vividly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we had, and I know this is like an awesome forum that you all are doing. So I'm honored to be a part of this. Again, I salute both of you all for really taking this stance and doing this to give coaches like myself a chance to help someone, because at the end of the day, as coaches, that's all we want. If you're in it for the right reason, let me say that.
That's right.
All you want to do is help someone else because someone helped you.
And I think you said a key thing about life in general, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're working to be the best that you can be and realize that it's a marathon, it's not a short sprint, opportunities are going to come to you as long as you stay diligent and persevere, man. That's what I hear about your story, and that's been one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah, and it's not a cheesy plug for our fraternity, but one of our cardinal principles is perseverance, because life is like you said, life is a marathon. And in this generation of get it now, get it quick, it's got to happen for me, that ain't real life. You didn't get this platform, you weren't able to create this platform right away. I know that you've been sharp and been smart your entire life, but it took time for you to have to mold it, model it, check all the boxes to make sure that it's done the right way, so that when you got the one opportunity, you could do it to the best of your ability instead of, okay, let me just throw this together, and then if that potentially fails, you don't get that second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's just been one show at a time, man, and we're getting close to 3 years.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, again, I congratulate you. I salute you all for this, because, there's a lot of substance to what you all are doing. There is no ego. There's no self-promotion, but you all are looking to help people. And so that's why I say when you're in coaching for the right reason, good things happen and people can appreciate that.